Cronin Toyota and Cronin Nissan are honored to partner with Proudly We Served, as well as the continued support of our local active and retired military veterans across eastern Indiana.
I'm Al Bledsoe, Veterans of Foreign War, Post 1108.
And I'm Ron Chappell. I'm the chaplain for Vietnam Veterans Post 777 here in Richmond.
And our guests today are?
I'm Gary Franklin. I'm a member of the Vietnam Veterans of America organization and also the VFW Post 1108.
Okay, Harold.
And I'm Harold Evans, Vietnam veteran.
All right.
Okay, so
well, the reason we do that is so that we don't mess up the guest's name. Okay, we may have occasion to do that. Yeah,
I understand.
Yeah, but welcome to Proudly We Served, and hopefully you'll find our discussion interesting. We want to talk about the UH-1 Huey, which was our everything for those who served in Vietnam. So we got these two specialists that are going to help or hopefully encourage your interest in the topic this morning.
And a lot of these questions, I guess, the gentlemen we have on the program today are Army people, and they understand the Huey. An Air Force guy like me don't quite get all of that stuff, but it's interesting to me the history behind the Huey and how that operates. So with that, I'd like to address that question to Gary and tell us just a little bit about your involvement with the Huey and how you got involved with the Huey when you went to Vietnam.
Well, the Huey was our Jeep, so to speak, where you had the Jeep and tanks in World War II. Everything was done with a Huey. Right. If you didn't have a Huey, you didn't do anything.
That's right.
Okay.
Whether it was taking you into a combat mission or medevacing you or whatever the case may be, the only time you ever rode a truck was I can only think that I rode a truck maybe twice in an entire year, that I was there.
Yeah.
So everything was Huey.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. That's right. All our supplies, everything came in.
Everything.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
So Harold, what did you do when you worked on the Hueys? Is that right? From our last show,
the Huey was my main transportation. It transported us from the main base to fire support bases all through Vietnam, and it was the easiest way to get there because the Viet Cong would mine all the roads and everything, and you had to go to different fire support bases to protect the main base. And the Huey was the taxi cab. I was a Sergeant E5, and Mr. Franklin, he was an officer. So he had more men to take care of than I did. And then when it got to me, I had to make sure that all of my guys knew what was going on, and I asked all kinds of questions. What does this do? What does that do? Where's the LZ at? And all that stuff. So we depended on the Chief Warrant Officers a lot.
Yeah, the pilots. Yeah.
And your men, Gary, you had several men that were under you. So how did you decide who went where? Did you have just a plan that you had, or?
Yeah, I started out as a platoon leader. I was the first lieutenant. Platoon was supposed to have about 40 guys. Most of the time we had 20 or 25,
Wow.
depending on, at one time, after we were hit with a sapper attack and I had 4 killed and 7 wounded that night, we were down to 7 men left in the platoon. Then 2 weeks later, we went into Cambodia. I spent a couple months as a platoon leader, and I got promoted to captain, actually while we were in Cambodia, and became the company commander. And then you're responsible for supposedly 160 guys,
Yeah.
but hardly ever did you have more than 100, 110, based on people being wounded, people on R&R, people on sick call.
Yeah. R&R, I like that one.
Whatever.
Did you like that?
You were always under strength.
Yeah.
Always under strength.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when the Huey was chosen, how exactly, and I don't know who could best answer that, but how did they decide on the Huey? How was that decided that this is the helicopter we're going to use in Nam, and this is what we're going to use it for? Who made those decisions, and how did that come down the line?
Let me say this about
Okay.
that. When I went in '62, went to basic, in AIT, Signal Corps School. Then they sent me to Fort Hood for a highly developed signal training program. And then they sent us to Fort Benning, Georgia. At Fort Benning, Georgia, they were developing, well, it was the 11th Air Assault Division. And the 11th Air Assault Division was called 11th Air Assault Division Provisional. And they were then taking the Huey and a bunch of other helicopters and using them to adapt to jungle type training. We went to Fort Stewart, Georgia, the woods out there, and we lived out there for several months, and they used different helicopters, and the Huey fared better than all the others in terms of maneuverability, the capability of carrying troops, supplies, speed. I mean, it was just fantastic aircraft. And so they took it. We took it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, the history of it, they started working on air mobile doctrine back in 1959, and they developed the first Huey helicopter. Back then it was called the UH-1 Iroquois.
Right, that's right.
Now,
Yeah.
it really didn't, its first real combat usage was not until 1965. And if any of you have seen the movie We Were Soldiers, with Colonel Halmore and the Cav unit, that happened in the Battle of the Idrang Valley. That happened in 1965. They had went over with 400 plus Hueys.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And that was
Yes.
the battle that actually was proof of the pudding, so to speak,
Yeah.
that the air mobile concept was valid.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And from that point on, it did nothing but expand as I got to read these numbers because I can't remember all these numbers, but I do want to give you a few statistics. By the war's end, more than 8,000 Hueys had been built, with 1,000 of them outfitted as gunships. That means they had rocket-propelled rockets on the side,
Right.
miniguns on the side.
Yep. 50 caliber.
7,000 of those 8,000 actually served in Vietnam.
Wow.
And of those 7,013 that served, 2,820 were lost.
Mm-hmm.
So almost 3,000 out of 7,000 were lost
Right.
while they were serving in Vietnam. The UH-1H, which is the most popular model, was introduced in '67, and later on, they were all single-engine helicopters until late in the development of the Huey, when they actually developed a two-engine Huey, which they called the UH-1N, but hardly anybody ever got a ride on one of those.
Yeah. Any of us, we were probably out. You're right. I remember the transition from the 11th Air Assault Division. They brought the first Cav colors from Korea, and they named that unit then the 1st Cav Division Air Mobile, which was the unit that I was in, put us on a ship and sent us to Nam. We got there, then we got our Hueys.
But like Gary said, you were supposed to have had X amount of guys, but 9 times out of 10 you didn't have. I was a Sergeant E5 and ended up being the platoon sergeant, which was normally an E6, E7. They called it acting jack.
Right, E7 was normal.
So I was acting jack, and I was, in charge of logistics. Hey, you guys got to go here. You guys got to go here. And people don't realize that we all work for each other. The communications, to the motor pools, to the everybody who work for each other, and hey, are my choppers ready? Is this ready? And the communications people, people don't realize your communications guy, which worked out of what we call the Tactical Operation Command.
Yep,
those guys were basically your ears and eyes for you going into an LZ. And the maneuverability of the helicopter, man, you had guys that hey, we're going to see what this thing will do.
Yeah.
And they would take and see what they could do with it.
Have you ever flown in one when you were in a hot LZ area and they couldn't go over the trees, so they had to go straight up?
Yes,
You ever
sir.
flown in one like that?
Yes, sir.
Boy, that'll move your gut.
Yes,
okay?
sir. Yes, sir. And the guys would put them in. When they hover, they put it in auto rotate. And sit there, and and a lot of times the chopper couldn't land. You had to rappel down.
Repel, that's right.
You had to rappel down.
That's right.
And I have to give those guys the highest esteem, because bullets be raining off them choppers, and they would get you in where you was at, and they would come back and get you back to safety.
That's right. That's right.
When a Huey went down, what was protocol then? What did you, if you're dropping troops or whatever you're doing, but the Huey goes down, what do you do with that? What do you do? I mean,
Well, you're gonna secure the LZ first,
okay,
which means you automatically secure the Huey because it's in the LZ.
all right,
And obviously everybody in the rear is gonna know that you've got somebody down.
Right.
And then everybody starts reacting, with medevacs, gunships, you name it, coming in to support that down helicopter until you can get it out of there.
Right.
If you can get it out
okay,
with the larger helicopter, Chinook, or if they have a sky crane available, you pulled it out. If you couldn't get it out, then you destroyed it in place.
That's right. Yep.
So that they couldn't get anything valuable off of the helicopter.
Right. Right.
wow.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I can't imagine going down on a helicopter. I just can't think that. I can't. My mind won't get there. And what the thing that comes in is the fear of those men that were on that. That's something that really to me, it's
The fear of the
just,
guys on the chopper?
yeah, the guys that are on the chopper. What do you do when it's
Well,
Mayday? I mean, you're going down.
You're going down. I've seen them land them without a skid on the bottom of them. Just be able to. It was kind of bumpy ride. They put them down. Those, like I'm gonna say it again. Those chopper pilots were awesome. They were awesome, and they would. I was on one, and it was going down. You just braced yourself and hope and pray to God that you didn't have an explosion on impact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they get the chopper down, and you would dismount, and you would secure the LZ till somebody could get in. Here come the Cobra gunships, and that little bitty helicopter we called the Loach.
Yeah.
That little Loach boy, them pilots, they could turn that thing and bank it around and turn it upside down.
Yeah,
if
I've
they want,
seen
you
it.
know.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Yeah,
I know what
yeah,
you're talking
yeah,
about.
yeah.
Those are, those guys are fantastic.
So if a Huey went down, there was all kinds of support that actually came in
Right.
and to
Oh, yeah.
protect that Huey.
Oh yes.
Wow.
So, guys, we're talking about bringing a Huey here to Richmond. to our Veterans Park. Am I right? That's what we want
That's
to do.
correct.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
yeah. Why do we want to do that?
Well, I started working on the Veterans Park 20 years ago, back when we brought our first memorial in, the Vietnam Memorial. And I went around and talked to, I don't know how many organizations trying to get support for the park, and nobody wanted to support the park because they thought it was just a Vietnam park. After we finally convinced people to support us enough that we could get in the Korean World War I and World War II memorials, then everybody realized this is a veterans park
Veterans, right.
Yeah.
and not a Vietnam Veterans Park. We have memorials for all the conflicts now in the park. We have what we call the Peacekeepers Memorial, which are those veterans who served but didn't happen to serve during the time of a war or a conflict. So we covered all the people who got a Purple Heart. We've got a memorial to them. We've covered all the women who served in all of our conflicts and
Yeah.
wars.
Yep.
We have a memorial for them.
Yep.
And we've always wanted a Huey down there.
Yeah.
At least I have for 20 years.
Sure.
And we finally, we were promised that we would get help along the way by numerous people, but never happened. So we had this opportunity to get a Huey, so it was pretty clear cut. Let's go for it. We've waited long enough.
Yeah.
We need to get this down there. It quite honestly will be the capstone, so to
Yeah.
speak, of
Yeah.
our park.
Sure.
Yeah.
And we have a commitment from the people that we purchased it from, which is going to take about $35,000 or $40,000 to do that. And they're supposed to have that ready for us next Memorial Day. So Memorial Day 2019
Okay.
is when we hope that we have everything there that we can dedicate to Huey.
Installed.
Installed. Yeah, they come over and help install it. It'll be about 20 feet in the air.
Oh man.
We've got to get it up high enough so we don't have people vandalize it.
I'm thinking about I want to climb up in it. I want to climb up.
Harold's going to get his ladder out.
Get my rope, and repel out of it. Okay.
I've got a rappelling rope.
You
at
do?
home you
Oh
can
man,
use.
yeah.
As Gary said, I've been master of ceremonies a couple times. Gary's been master of ceremonies when we had the moving Vietnam Wall to come in with all of the deceased guys on it. And if you haven't ever been down there at that time, it's very, very moving. It's something to go see if the wall comes back into our city. And our Veterans Park.
Oh, it is.
Our Veterans Park
Number
is
one.
pristine.
Number one.
I've been to different places, through the state of Indiana and
Nobody
Ohio and
compares.
everything. There's none that even now compares with ours.
No.
And that's
Right.
due to the dedication. I'm going to have to thank Mr. Gary Franklin for spearheading a lot of that stuff and his commitment to the park. And we see we've got some shells lined up around Mr. Goebel, and they got them all welded and everything so the people can't vandalize that stuff. We have got a great group of veterans here in Richmond, Indiana that participate and try to make everything come together. And that Huey is going to be a great addition. The one Huey that comes in when we do have the wall down there that gives people rides and everything, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. I had occasion to get in it and sit in the gun seat. I had to do that a couple of times.
Yes,
and
sir.
he let me get up in there, and I remember it
Oh, yes.
flying over.
Oh, yes.
Man,
Vivid. Brings back memories. Brings back a lot of memories.
yeah.
You see, the Huey was supposed to carry 8 to 10 people.
Yeah.
That's what it was designed for.
Yeah.
And
More
the rotor blade, the Huey itself is only about 41 feet long, but the blades, the big rotor blades, they started out at 42 feet, and then they increased it to 48 feet
Oh, wow.
so they could get more lift. So the
Yeah.
blades diameter is actually longer than the aircraft
Right.
itself
Right.
is.
Yep.
But normally in Vietnam, because it was all based on temperature, humidity, how much fuel they were carrying, the normal range, I'll tell you this exactly, was 236 miles. The maximum speed 141. They usually cruised at about 120 mile an hour. So if they were making a short run, they might go a little bit light on fuel, and they could carry more soldiers. Normally, I don't know what Mousie's experience was, normally on an aircraft, we had probably a maximum of 6. Because again, when you went to the field, if you were going on an ambush patrol or whatever, you carried a lot of
Full
stuff.
pack.
You carried a lot of stuff. And if you were going out for like 3 days, 5 days, whatever, you were carrying a 70-pound rucksack loaded mostly with ammo,
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
a lot of water, and mostly ammo.
Yep.
And like Gary said, it depends on what range that you were traveling in. Sometimes they look at get in here, they carried a few extra people.
Uh-huh.
But it all depends on how far that they were going out, and especially down around Coochie, that was one of the main helicopter bases. There was helicopters everywhere down there, everywhere.
Yeah.
And if you seen an air assault with 30, 40, 50 to 60 helicopters, oh man, it just sends chills down my back right now, just to even down to hear the rotation of those blades.
Oh, yeah, the sound. I
Oh, yeah.
remember that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I remember
Oh,
that.
yes.
Hey guys, now I was told, and I wasn't sure, I was never sure the whole time I was there, but the choppers that were medevac choppers that had the Red Cross on them, that there was an agreement that the enemy couldn't shoot those down. Was that true?
No.
No.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. Because I was there, backed out of there. You know,
You pay attention to Red
but,
Cross.
But yeah,
What does that mean to
but
them?
no, I'm just saying that
I mean, yeah, I know-
supposedly
I know
there
what
was
you're saying, but
an agreement. I
Charlie
think it was
don't care
Geneva
about that.
Convention or something like that.
It probably was an agreement, but it wasn't followed.
Yeah.
They got shot down just as well.
That's
Charlie didn't
crazy.
care. He
That's
didn't
crazy.
care. He didn't
So
care.
let's get on and let's explain a little bit of how we can help with the Huey and talk to Gary a little bit about that. He's treasurer VVA and
Well, we're always looking for support for the park. And it's really amazing. We run into people all the time that don't even know the park is there.
I
Right,
know.
right, very
You're
true.
right.
It's absolutely amazing,
Yeah.
you know, as long as we've had the park there now. But there's still people who don't know where the park is or how to get there or so forth. You can access the park off of Main Street now
Yep.
for the last couple of years, which is much better than having to go by the jail and go down Johnson
Down the
Street,
back way,
Right.
yeah.
which is a big hill.
Yep.
So we're trying to get this Huey here, and we want you to come down and look at our park, see our park, and come down and have lunch at the park. There's
Yeah.
tables down there.
Yeah, we had a shed.
We have weddings down there. We have police ceremonies down there. We have a lot of stuff going on in the park.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you have an event that you want to do down there, just let us know,
Yeah,
and we'll be glad to let you do it.
yeah, yeah. And
just recently all new bathroom
I was going to
facility.
say, Brad,
all that
brand
stuff.
new
So
restrooms,
the park
yeah.
is really up
Yeah.
to date. And
Very good facility.
Boy, and like Harold said, when you look around, Veterans Park in Wayne County
Man.
is one of the nicest Veterans Park, probably in the state. Or
I'm going to
close
say
it.
in the United States.
In the United States.
Because you
Because
just
most
don't see
places you
much.
go, what they have is a statue and something about
Right.
that's about it.
That's it.
You know, Nobody compares.
They got bricks of people's names and stuff on them. You know, you can buy you a brick, have your name and rank, and put it.
Yeah, if you got a loved one that passed in the service, you can get a memorial brick placed down there. Yeah. Well, I'm excited about this Huey coming, man. I really am.
We're really excited.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I can. You know, the guys that and you guys, I can tell by the way you handled all of this thing with the Huey, of getting the Huey here. Is a big tribute to what VVA, and Gary especially was one of the main guys involved in all that. And that's really something. To all of us that served, the Huey is kind of a status symbol of Vietnam, basically.
It's the symbol.
It is the symbol, man.
The symbol.
I'm telling you.
Huey and M16 rifle.
That's right.
Yeah, I hear that.
That's right.
So we got to shut it down. So you want to shut it down?
So if you want to help in any kind of way, how do they get a hold of somebody to?
Well, the best way to do it, since the VVA does not have a building, the Memorial Committee does not have a building, so the best thing is to contact the VFW here in Richmond, and that phone number is 966-6441, and just ask them, hey, I'd like to help support the park, or I'd like to help support the Huey coming in, what do I do?
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So again, this has been a great session. This is really interesting to me, this Huey business, the way all that goes down. So
stay tuned, folks, because in the coming months, as we get closer, I'm sure we're going to have a installation program or something. All right. So hey, thanks for watching Proudly We Served, and we pray or hope that you will continue to watch this program. We get a lot of good feedback from people about what they learn about the veterans in our service, and the veterans get a lot of information that helps them as we bring on people from various areas that provide services to veterans. So stay tuned, keep tuning us in. Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Yes.
Cronin Toyota and Cronin Nissan are honored to partner with Proudly We Served, as well as the continued support of our local active and retired military veterans across eastern Indiana.